Before we dive in, I wanted to take a moment to thank this season's presenting sponsor, ShopMy. ShopMy is a platform that connects designers, tastemakers, and creators with shoppers who trust their style and recommendations. With ShopMy, you can discover and shop the pieces experts actually use and love in their own homes, all in one beautifully curated place. And now, shopping is even easier with the launch of the new ShopMy app. Create circles with your favorite curators like myself or today's guest, discover new products tailored to your taste, and save everything you love with wish lists and Snapshot right in the app. Download the new ShopMy app at the link in the show notes. And now, on to this week's episode.
I firmly believe that you're living in parallel dimensions. The way I describe it is, if you're doing a project in Charleston, you're doing one in Kabul, you're working on a project in Tokyo, those places exist temporarily. They're running, forward at the same time, but when you duck out of them, they still exist. So that's one part of your life, and you dip back into it when you're back there again. So I find that when I fly into a place, it suddenly all resets in my mind. I remember everybody's names. I kind of the project becomes in focus.
Welcome to Talk Shop. I'm Ariel Okin, a New York-based interior designer, writer, and editor, looking to bring a little bit of magic into our homes every day. After years as a writer and editor in the interiors world, I founded my own editorial site, Fenimore Lane, in 2020, and the Talk Shop interview series was born. Each week, I delve into the personal experiences of the top interior designers and tastemakers around the globe. This week, we're heading back across the pond to welcome one of the UK's leading interior designers and the creative force behind Oliver Laws in Mayfair, Guy Oliver. From growing up trawling antiques fairs in Scotland to leaving home at 17 to join the Royal Navy, and ultimately becoming a celebrated designer and philanthropist, Guy has lived a truly fascinating and inspiring life. He has transformed some of the world's most iconic hotels, including Claridge's, the Connaught, and Shelbourne in Dublin, and even redesigned the staterooms at number 10 Downing Street. But beyond luxury hotels and private estates, Guy's heart lies in craft and heritage. As creative director of the Turquoise Mountain Foundation, he restores historic buildings in Afghanistan, trains local artisans, and brings these extraordinary crafts into his projects worldwide, including suites at the Connaught, where Afghan woodcarving and miniature paintings create spaces of unmatched depth, beauty, and story. I truly learned so many lessons about both life and design from Guy on this episode, and I really hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed speaking with him. Us on the show. I'm so thrilled to have you on and to speak with you.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
To kick off the conversation, we always ask everyone who comes on, can you describe your style in 3 words or less?
So in the inimitable words of, there was a British designer in the 1930s called Siri Morn who worked US, UK, which is a bit like my life. And she always said that appropriateness.
Oh, I love that.
Which is appropriateness for the project, the client, and the designer, I think. So, but I think that kind of sums up the right approach to design.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. I love that. And for those listening, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this, like where you are at this point in your career right now?
I have a slightly strange route to becoming a designer, but I started in the military. I was in the Navy when I was 16.
Yes, I know. I was reading about that. I want to hear about how you pivoted from the Navy to design.
It's a natural progression, but a friend once told me that I had 10 lives, and I like to think about it as having 10 lives simultaneously. So I kind of believe that I have so many things that interest me, and I really love what I do. I'm very fortunate in that, but I believe Einstein's idea that past, present and future exist simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Like that film, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, when you're working on multiple projects in different geographical locations at the same time, I tend to do the projects that I love. So I'm fortunate. We're a small outfit. I didn't become a designer to be a business owner. I became a designer because I love designing. So at one stage the company grew, And then I found I was being an HR manager and this person doesn't like that person, or the cat's died, or whatever it is. And then you're kind of
I know, it's like it's like the part that you don't sign up for when you become a designer.
And so since then I outsourced the HR, I outsourced the accounts.
Wise.
And then there's like a core team of 6 of us, and there's some freelancers that come and go, but who we've worked with over the years on different types of projects. But we punch higher than our weight. So, we're a small niche design company, and I'm a sort of niche designer, but we typically work on high-end residential, and that could also include yachts and aircraft, or niche hotel projects. So for me, that the types of hotels I've worked on they all tell a story. They're not part of a group or a chain. They're sort of individual, identifiable properties within in a city, or they have a character or something about them, which I like something that's got a wonderful story to play with. And my projects vary from paid to voluntary work as well. So I love my job, and it's literally taken me everywhere from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe and many countries in between. So
it's amazing.
But I think if you love what you do, everything aligns. If you're doing something for love and not for avarice, things align around you, and your energy your frequency attracts people that are similar. And when I first started in the company, my business partner at the time used to call the clients the enemy, because he was always in this combative relationship with the clients. There'd be some drama or fight. I thought about it. I thought, well, they're not our enemy. They pay us to do what we love doing.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's the reason why we do it, right? So for me, I could see what I wanted to do, and I could see what I loved. And I came from quite humble origins, but, I think I'm enthusiastic, and I love all the elements of the work that I do. So things align to make that happen. And I'm fortunate that I can choose the projects so that, purely by dint of time, I can't do more than, say, 3 or 4 projects at once. And if they're bigger projects, then that takes it down, as well, because it's, one of the hotel projects I'm working on at the moment is going on for 2.5 years, and we'll run another 6 months, and it gets quite all encompassing. But I like to keep a spread of different types of projects, because that stimulates me and keeps me being creative in whichever projects I'm working on. So
I bet. And you guys have worked on some really historic projects, from Claridge's to the Shelbourne. You worked at 10 Downing Street and a myriad of private country houses and period townhouses. So your work is so impressive, and also really spans the gamut from, residential to commercial to historic. And it's really amazing that you get to kind of span all 3 of those categories.
Yeah, I'm also lucky that the clients I've met, I talk about frequency and resonance and the characters that you meet along the way, and the people that you jive with are the ones that have the most successful projects.
Absolutely.
And I did this beautiful yacht, a 1937 60-meter restoration, and she was the most wonderful project. But the client said, make her look like she's been in continuous ownership since she was built. And she was built in 1937. And then he also described her, when he first bought her, as a loose association of rust held together with air, which she was. So we had to create this atmosphere of the period, which looked authentic and continuous, and it was like a whole story within a story. And I loved detailing that. Every single element of the boat project was bespoke and designed and detailed, and it's seamless. When people go on board, they believe it was ever thus, but it's actually, it's what the French say, a mise en scène. It's an atmosphere. It's a creation.
So interesting. I feel like the love of story, the love of the why behind design, is sort of what drives you. And I know you grew up in Scotland trawling antiques fairs with your mother. What are some memories from those early experiences, and how do you feel that sort of shaped your eye for design?
I think dealing with antique dealers was the first part of it, which is dealing with these characters that you come across. So as a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, I was taken to these fairs. I was this geeky kid who my mother told me about silver hallmarks and marks on porcelain and that sort of thing. So amazing. I would go through these junk shops and hone my mind to look for these marks or these anything, and I knew what was of value. So I would find like a dirty black and silver spoon and buy it for 50 pence, in a flea market, and then clean it up and sell it for £5. And as a child, that's like a big motivator, right? So
totally.
So, and then at one stage, my mother was an antique dealer. She had a very small shop in Scotland, but she also would do antique fairs where you lay out your stall in a fair where people come and, and she gave me a little corner of the stall. So I had this area which was about 20% of her tabletop, as it were. And I remember one Saturday she got really mad with me because I took more money than she did on the Saturday. And she was like, and she then charged me rent for the little section of the table. So I was like, okay, all right. So
that's so funny. And also it just speaks to what crafted your initial love for design, which is the appreciation of quality, and how that has become a thread in all of the work that you do, which is really beautiful.
Thank you. I mean, for me, it is that. It's something that's true. Luxury is something that's made, that's bespoke, and something that's made for you, and it might not have a great big sign on it saying this is a X brand object. But the person who's commissioned it and has been on that journey, if you have a box, it's just a box. But if it's been made by this Syrian artisan who had to leave the country because of the Assad regime and ended up living in Amman in Jordan and setting up a workshop, and he was supporting a family and children, the whole thing, and his name, and you've seen what he's done, then suddenly the box becomes valuable because of the story.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People want experiences. They don't want things. An object is a thing until there's a story around it. Did it belong to Great Aunt Mary, or where did it come from? What's the journey to acquire this thing? And so for me, that's important. Again, it goes back to storytelling. And what has a romance to some people will leave some other people cold or whatever. But it's the things that resonate with the client and the designer that make a successful story.
Absolutely. And that's what makes interior so personal. I think sometimes people forget that, your home is supposed to be the ultimate reflection of you and your personal story. And so each item can have a ton of meaning, and it doesn't have to be something that's, been brought right off the shelf. So at 17, you left home to join the Navy, which is such a wild career pivot.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I have this duality in my life, and some people think I'm a spy or something, because they get these. I have all these friends in the military who are now quite senior, and then there's my design life. So I worked in, we'll talk about this a bit later, but in Afghanistan, where we were restoring this district in central Kabul, and I met these characters like H.R. McMaster, who was this extraordinary American general, who I think is a brilliant man, and he's at the Hoover Institute in the States, and he was such a gentle man and civilized and cultured, and he knew all about the country. And we talked, there was obviously the military side of life there, and then I was there in a non-government organization volunteering, restoring the city center in Kabul. And so that was quite an interesting environment for me, because we were perceived as foreigners at first as being part of the military, and then they realized that I was there restoring buildings.
Wow. And I want to talk about that, because the experience that you're speaking about is your work with the Turquoise Mountain Foundation, where you went into Afghanistan and restored, you worked with local artisans, you kept cultural traditions alive. Let's explain some of that for the listener, because it's such an interesting story.
Yeah, so it's funny, when I go to Afghanistan, I feel like I must have had a past life there or something, because it feels so familiar to me. But I have this friend who's a medium, and she said, I see someone behind you, your spirit guide, who has scarves. And I always assumed it was some woman with a lot of scarves on, but actually I think it was somebody from a Pashto or some tribal member or something, I don't know. But
wow, I believe in all that stuff. Yeah, that is good. So cool.
So I found the place that resonated with me. And what happened, I had a friend who was an American Muslim living in Islamabad. Her husband worked for J. Walter Thompson, and she was on her own as a sort of expatriate wife in Pakistan. And there were these kids coming out of Afghanistan who were injured or orphans, and they were washing up in the streets as street children in Islamabad. And so I've worked very closely with our King's office in philanthropic and charitable projects here, and she wanted to come to talk about helping, finding a way that we could set up a project to teach these kids some kind of skills to support themselves. And
wow.
I had a meeting, we talked about it, it didn't happen. And then the king introduced me to Rory Stewart, who is this amazing character. He's a sort of latter-day explorer in the manner of Wilfred Thesiger or Robert Byron or any of those characters. And so Rory volunteered to go out to Afghanistan, and I had a client who's a very generous private individual who underwrote part of that idea of going out to find a project to restore buildings and teach skills for restoring them. So we were teaching, ultimately ended up, and we set up a course structure there for accredited course structure, so students could come in and learn skills in tile making, carving, miniature painting, calligraphy, jewelry, and so on.
Wow, beautiful.
It's a beautiful project, and again, it's about the story. And so my hotel work, in London, probably I'm most well known for the Connaught Hotel in London, and 90% of the hotel is my design work. There's been some work from a couple of other designers in the food and beverage outlets, and
it's so beautiful. It's like one of my most favorite hotels ever.
It's such a when I first went there, I wasn't sure about it because before we restored it in 2008-9, it was kind of felt like an old people's home, and and I was like,
that's so funny.
I thought it's come to this, and I was kind of like, what am I doing? And there was a lady who was the chief executive of the company at the time. The owners were what's called the Savoy Group, which doesn't exist anymore. And she asked me to look at it and said, there's 20 rooms. We want you to do 20 of the 96 rooms that were there at the time. It's now 115 rooms and suites because it was extended. But they asked me to do it, and I looked at it and I said, this whole place needs restoring.
I mean, it's absolutely stunning.
Well, now, thank you. But then I was slightly scared, and I was also a bit offended because I'd worked at Claridge's first, and that was my first love.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
You've got the Art Deco grandeur of Claridge's, and then the Connaught is this discreet, basically a sort of, it feels like a private townhouse in London.
Yeah, it does.
And it's got this amazing character, but it's also discreet under the radar. So although you have characters who stay there, like, Ralph Lauren or Steven Spielberg or any of those characters who stay there, you don't notice because it's discreet. Whereas Claridge's is about Art Deco and its show, and there's, events and junkets and launching the Christmas tree and all those things with different designers. And
the Christmas tree is so beautiful. I mean, they're two of the most iconic hotels in London.
Yeah, it's got such an identity that people, I think, want to be there.
Right. How did you approach blending the work that you do with the Turquoise Mountain Foundation into these projects? Because I know the Princess Suite, right, at the Connaught, which was built with a lot of the artisans in Afghanistan. How did that come about?
Well, there's actually two suites. So the first one is the Prince's Lodge. So at the time, there was a chief executive of the group, and I was out in Afghanistan keeping an eye on where my client's money was being spent on restoring these.
Yeah.
It's like, he gave a very generous donation, and it was unencumbered funds, but he was generous for a period of 5 years. And because of that, there was match funding from different government agencies, and then the project grew. And at the time I was starting to work as lead designer on the Connaught, I was out in Afghanistan as well, and I went to this historic district in the middle of Kabul in the summer. It was baking hot, and we came across this small wooden house, which is now known as the Peacock House. It had been part of something called the Peacock Palace, which was a district where Connaught is in the middle of Kabul, was a little enclave. It's a Shia community and a Sunni majority, and they were the bodyguard for the king. And so this house there's all these beautifully carved houses which were all connected to the royal palace. And what happened was in 1974, when the Soviet Union invaded, there's no need for a bodyguard for the king because there's no king.
Right. It's amazing that it stayed intact.
Well, it stayed intact in much the same way that somewhere like Charleston in South Carolina came intact. It remained intact because of poverty. So, historic buildings, when people have a lot of money, they alter them and they change them and they quote unquote improve them and change the nature and character of them. But in a different way, Murad Khani, which was this heritage district, and suddenly these guys are unemployed, and also they're kind of like this, subculture within a bigger culture that doesn't particularly like them. So they keep a low profile, and the houses run into disrepair, but they're still there somehow. And, and when Rory and I first went out to Afghanistan, we found this district, and there was these beautiful buildings, but they were very much down on their uppers, as we would say. And we kind of walked around and then met the community and took leases on properties on each corner of the district.
Wow.
There was a Soviet master plan to build a road. It's next to the Kabul River. They wanted to build a road by the riverside and knock down the Shia shrines and these heritage buildings. These crazy foreigners came in and we leased these buildings.
This is like a movie. I mean, I know you said this at the beginning, but you live like 10 lives at once.
I firmly believe that you're living in parallel dimensions. So the way I describe it is, if you're doing a project in Charleston, you're doing one in Kabul, you're working on a project in Tokyo, those places exist temporarily. They're running, forward at the same time, but when you duck out of them, they still exist. So that's one part of your life, and you dip back into it when you're back there again. So I find that when I fly into a place, it suddenly all resets in my mind. I remember everybody's names. I kind of the project becomes in focus.
That's so fascinating. I mean, it also helps weave so much of what you've done and know into every project, because it helps you thread such a unique story to whatever it is that you're working on at the time.
Well, for me, again, it goes back to that thing, if you enjoy it and you become immersed in it, and it's not for an avaricious reason, you are doing that, you're drawing things align. The first museum project I ever did, the first exhibition I ever did, was at the Louvre Museum in Paris.
Wow.
And so I had this bizarre situation where I met this man who was a photographer, and he wanted an exhibition in London, which I managed to organize for him. And then he said he wanted one in Paris in a museum. And well, what's the first museum that comes to mind, right? The Louvre. So I find myself thinking about the Louvre, and I'm like, how am I going to get there? And I thought the French are not going to want this unknown photographer as work. So I was working on a project in Malaysia, and there was a sign there with Forbes magazine. It says Forbes magazine Top 500 Chief Executives Conference. So with my charity work, I'd met and know Christopher Forbes.
Okay.
I saw this sign at the airport, and I thought, how weird. There's this thing. So I texted him. I said, "Are you in Kuala Lumpur at the moment?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm here for this conference." I said, "Well, I'm here for a project." And he said, "Come for lunch tomorrow." I go into this room, I sit down, and on my left is Christopher Forbes, and on my right is a man called Henri Loiret. And guess what Henri Loiret does for a living? He is the president of the Louvre Museum, was the president of the Louvre Museum. That was a week after my thoughts about this idea.
Oh my God. Isn't that so crazy?
Yeah, totally nuts and
the
random.
Universe really, I believe this too, like the universe absorbs what you're putting out into it, and it will bring it back to you.
Yeah. And this has happened many, many times, and it's almost like a lazy energy. It's not, if you grasp at something, it's like grabbing a jelly in your hands. It will squeeze out of your hands. Yeah. Or trying to nail jelly to a tree, it's impossible. You can't do it.
I love that.
But if you think about it and you get excited and you think, oh, this is going to happen, it starts snowballing. Anyway, I said to him, look, do you know any museums that maybe would consider taking an exhibition? I'm sure we fund it. We're talking about it. He said, I don't know, come to my office in Paris next week. And anyway, a week later, I didn't tell the client this, and then I went to Paris and I said, could we consider doing this? And he said, yeah, if you follow the rules that we have and this and that. And, anyway, so literally 9 months later, we opened this exhibition at the Louvre.
That is wild.
And what was so exciting about it was also I was commissioning music. I was designing the exhibition galleries. I was laying out the selection of the art. And, and it was just snowballed into this wonderful series of experiences. I was thinking, we need to write music for this exhibition. And we need to find a composer. We need to do this and that. And it grew.
It's such a different way of like utilizing your design muscle in a thoughtful way.
I'd never thought about being an exhibition designer, but of course it's the same as interior design and decoration. And when I started out, I worked in, shop windows and parties and things, which is a great way to express your design, because if it's great, you can take a picture. If it's terrible, it's gone in 3 days.
Yeah. That's so true.
But yeah, I think again it goes back to that point of view about love, and if you love it and you do it for that reason, the frequency is correct and things align.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and I think that's just like such a fabulous life lesson too. Is there a favorite element about the design process for you?
The first part of the design process for me is also space planning. So famously, the beautiful yacht that I did, which is called Milani, and she's loved and beloved by many people now. But I did 17 layouts.
Oh my God.
For the main saloon, and I was thinking, what the hell? And then another. And it was because in this small space on a yacht, everything has to be anchored down to the deck.
Right.
And, invisibly fixed. So, but it should look like all the furniture is movable and in the house, and it needs to feel. So the layering of all of those elements, the side table has to be a place where you're going to put your drink down, and, probably slightly, there were pull-out slides for glasses, and there had to be a games table in there because the family played games, cards and backgammon and so on. Mm-hmm. So there needed to be an area for seating that. There was a fireplace, there was a piano, there was a bar, there was all these layers, all within a small space. And by the way, we need to sit 12 people comfortably.
Oh my God.
And you're like, what the hell?
I mean, talk about the ultimate exercise in space planning.
Yeah, and also make it look like it's layered over time and it's evolved, everything. So it was quite a stress. When I got to the 17th plan, I was like, what are we doing? I've never done this before. Anyway, we got there and the result was brilliant. Then we had to mock everything up in foam one-to-one models of everything so that you could lay it out. And I don't know if you've ever seen a yacht project before, but basically if it's a restoration, the hull is in a shipyard and they're doing all the systems and the pipework and the electrics and everything, which is laid in the sides of the hull. In a parallel project is the interiors, and they build a one-to-one model of the yacht in plywood, and you build every element of the interior. So you're building everything first, and then you have to make it fit in the warehouse in the interior section, and then you have to dismantle it and then bring it to the shipyard and install it after the system. And we had to do all of this within a 2-year time frame, which we did, but it was like breakneck pace.
I'm sure.
And that was, detailing every little thing from the teaspoons to, the staterooms and everything. And it was...
It sounds like the coolest project ever.
Yeah, it was amazing. And what was amazing about it also was the client was incredibly kind. And at the end of the project, he said, would you like to borrow the boat? Would you like a 5-day trip, And it was the most generous gift I've ever had. And it was really kind. And if it ever happens again, I would, what I did was, of course, I invited people who were friends that I owed things to, and it was a short notice trip, but it wasn't something I was expecting, but it was incredibly kind. And
yeah, and what an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was very cool.
What do you think the best advice for designing interiors you've ever received was?
Listen to the client.
Yep.
There are some designers that are prescriptive who have a look, and there's a look with a thin piece of colored cloth and 3 vases down the middle of a table and 3 pillows on it, whatever it is, and it's like that's in blah blah interior by so and so, which of course is also marketable, and it's nice for people can market that idea because it's like, oh, that's their look. But for me, the same boat, house, apartment, office, whatever, in the same building with a different client would be different, because you have to listen to them and also reflect their personality and character. And, and some people have more of a personality than others. I worked for a lovely guy called, I can mention his name, Gordon Elliott. He's a TV presenter. He did the Paula Dean show and various other things in the States. He's an Australian guy. Yeah. And we became friends, but I did a project for him upstate New York, and he had a canoe head and a canoe and these man and all these things, and we had his personality was very big. So for making his man cave, his library, his place where he lived, that was fun because you had all these big objects to play with, and we had an upside down canoe in the middle of the library on the ceiling of this library.
But that's what makes your work so fascinating and interesting. It's because you really do dive so deep into the personal stories of everyone. And that's why every project looks so different and so bespoke.
For me, that's the interesting part. Again, what is the story they're trying to tell? And, in London, it's the sort of nexus of the world, I think. Within 500 meters of my office, you have every head of state, every celebrity, every sports person passes through London at some stage, in the year or in 2 years or 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can literally go out the front door of my office and you could run into Bill Clinton, or you could run into Melanie Griffith, or any of you literally could see, is that random, and you'll see someone and double take and say, is that, and those people, you can have an encounter with them, and that means you might be working on a project in Tokyo, or it might lead to something else. And so for me, it's about being open to all of that and listening to people, and then, getting excited about things that they want to do. And so for me, that's all part of the fun of this job. And
it's so cool. Every time you get a new project, you get to dive into a whole new world, and you get to do research on something you might not know about prior, and you get to meet a whole new group of people. And it's just, when you love what you do, and I think it's applicable to any career, not just what we do, but when you love what you do, it doesn't really feel like work. And so you don't.
And you follow things that excite you. So, for example, the Shelbourne in Dublin, which is where the Irish Constitution was drafted in 1921. My grandfather was born in Dublin in 1921. There's been this Irish theme through my life. The Connaught is an Irish province, Bread came through, the Irish part of my history came through. And, there's the Constitution being drafted there, and I did a bar there, which had I had a wonderful artist friend who recently passed called Paul Slater. The last big project we did together was this bar. It has a mural with all these characters from Irish fiction, literature, historical figures.
Wow.
Everyone from Angelica Houston to John Wayne in The Quiet Man to, Arthur Guinness.
That's amazing.
And it's called the 1824 bar, and it's on the mezzanine and the main staircase. And then the other thing we got to do was commissioned a series of stained glass windows on the main stairs with all the 32 counties of the whole of the island of Ireland.
That is so cool.
And I was reading the history of the hotel, and President Hyde, who was the first president of the Irish Free State, was looking out of the window of the Shelbourne Hotel in 1916 and writes in his diary, who are these Egypts causing a ruckus on the square? And it's the 1916 Easter uprising. And he's writing this description in his diary. And so I went to the National Gallery of Ireland, and I managed it took me 2.5 years of determination, convincing the family of the artist and the gallery to get a licensed copy of the portrait of President Hyde. And he is looking out the window, the same window he looked out.
That is so cool.
And people may or may not notice that when they're in the Lord Mayor's Lounge, which is the tea room at the Shelbourne. But for me, that was a nice little thread.
I mean, that is the coolest little detail that means so much when you know the backstory behind it and how it was woven in so thoughtfully.
Yeah, and Paul Henry, the artist, was married to the housekeeper at the Shelbourne in the 1920s, and there are copies of his paintings there as well. And when you know that story, it layers a story through the hotel, which makes it unique. It's not just a cookie cutter hotel. It's got a real personality. And you can literally be in the lobby of the Shelbourne at Christmas and run into Bono or Gabriel Byrne or Prince, whoever, and they're all there. Plus there are the farmers who are up from Limerick taking the wife out for a glass of champagne, and it's a special time. And there's students who've just graduated from Trinity, and they're all in the middle of this hotel, and they all in the lobby. And it's kind of the place where Dublin goes to celebrate, because it's the last grand hotel in Ireland.
Yeah.
And it's also right next to St. Stephen's Green, which is like being next to Central Park. And, these personalities and characters all cross and mingle and mix in the Shelbourne. And the reason why I got invited to work on the Shelbourne was because the then owner used to stay at the Connaught.
Oh my God. It's so full circle. I feel like all of these things in your life have happened for a reason. It's so cool.
Yeah, I still have to work out exactly what the reason is yet, but I'll get there eventually. I'll find the answer.
Well, what do you think your home says about you?
Good question. So for me, I guess it says the carpenter's door is always broken.
I know, I feel that way about myself.
And when it gets to me, I'm not really materialistic. I mean, I know that sounds odd talking to someone who's an interior designer, but I exercise my materialism vicariously through my clients. So they have a collection of things, so wonderful paintings, or they have a wonderful collection of porcelain, or whatever it is, and you create this space around it, and it's their stage set. It's where they are, and it shows their character and personality, and they're able to inhabit that space with those things that they own. But as a result, I've got no particular attachment to things. Things in my house have a memory, or there's a painting that somebody's painted that is a friend, or when I was working in Tokyo, I bought this mad little temple which I managed to carry back in my hand luggage.
So cool.
It was in first class. I was in the back.
Well, let's get into a little bit about your Shop My Store. We've been talking about this in every episode, and you so graciously curated a very cool wish list and storefront. Is there anything in there that you're particularly excited about, or something that means something special to you?
I think the continuity item in there is the R.M. Williams boots, which
yes, I saw them. They're so cool.
So I used to live, when I was living in Manhattan, I lived on 16th between 5th and 6th, and there was a place called Dave's Store, and it was before Connaught became, cool, and this aesthetic I picked up was from Dave's Store.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I don't know if it still exists. I'm sure it does. And I kind of like that, my father was eternally sort of slightly embarrassed. What does your son do? He's an interior designer. So I guess this is rugby playing policeman. I'm a rugby playing designer, but there was this sort of element of that, and so I guess I had this sort of counter culture of masculine clothing, and which kind of is pivoted my design life, because at one stage I had a disastrous relationship when someone described me as sort of organizing cushions and lampshades, and I was like, no,
not what you do. I mean,
so not what I do. And
I feel like people don't really understand what designers do, and so they think that's what it is, but they have no understanding of the level of attention to detail and the way people are bringing a story with a through line from concept to install. And
the good design goes unnoticed, because
right.
I did a restaurant at Claridge's, and we spent £5 million, and we installed it in less than a year. In fact, in 6 months. So we had a burn rate of $1 million a month to get this restaurant open.
That is so wild.
Nuts, right? Okay, and they're doing this thing and delivering, and I'm working night and day detailing and making metal details, marble details, carpet details, furniture details, all of those things, and plaster details, and artists, and all of these layers that go in the restaurant. And after I finished, this friend of mine, who is he works in a charity, a design charity, comes in and she said, "What did you do here?"
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
What didn't I do here?
But then I thought about it, and I thought, this is actually a backhanded compliment, because she thinks it's always been here, and she thinks it's always looked like this. So that, in a way, makes it mean that it's, so like I said, good design often goes unnoticed because they assume it was ever thus. And so
that's so right. And also, I think when something feels like it's been there forever, you've done your job, because it's not screaming at you. And you've sort of created an environment. I mean, it's like the boat, right? Like you've created something that feels like, whether it was installed in, a year or not, it feels like it's been there for 50 years, which is really, really hard to do.
And it feels authentic, and I think that's good. If you can create that identity, that atmosphere, you've won. And that takes an enlightened and trusting client. And that, and somebody who's it also takes a designer who's committed to the project in a way, and it does take a lot of your energy and your personality. And when I finished Farrer at Claridge's, the restaurant, one of my best friends that I grew up with is a metal worker, and he was involved with some details in the project. But then he died at the end of the project, and because he was sick, and he didn't tell me how sick he was.
Oh.
And on the last day of the project, I said, I'll come and see you, and after we finish the install. And he was tired, and he really, he went back home, and he passed. And I was like, how did I not know that he was lying about being ill? And he was so committed. And so for me, those interiors, literally, are so personal to me. Every design that I do, every project that I do has it's again the story of that project and the journey of that project. And he wanted to make sure that he completed what he committed to do.
Yeah.
And, and I love him for that. And that was amazing. But it was also, losing that friend was such a, the whole thing was this investment of your personality and your time into a project. And he didn't want to let me down, and he didn't. He surpassed it. So, those things, you get these, there's laughter and tears and emotional roller coaster often involved with projects, because you're dealing with, individual characters and personalities and all their frailties and all those things. So, yeah.
I'm just so blown away by your life story. I mean, it's wild. You have lived so many different lives simultaneously, and also, like, you didn't go to school for design.
No.
I mean, it's fascinating. It's so cool.
I kind of learned on the job, I think. I was lucky with that.
Yeah.
And because I loved it, I'd read around the project and go to museums and houses and absorb things. And even when I was in the Navy, there was something that was telling me, I didn't study for my navigation exams and my gunnery exams. I would always just pass. But when we arrived in Antarctica, or we arrived in South America, or I would go straight ashore and start looking at the architecture and the buildings and the places.
Yeah. You love it.
Yeah, and you absorb all those elements of culture and how people live, and what makes life comfortable in Cairo. Or, it might be the way they have those beautiful tea trays, which have got a little ring at the top, and they swing through the restaurants, and there's those and these little details. And when you layer them into other spaces in other cultures, it becomes a kind of informed dialogue of the prism of your life experience. The things that you love. So.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I'm so blown away by your story. I'm so glad that you came on. Let's do our Take 10. This is what we do at the end of every episode. So we do our rapid fire questions, and there's some that I'm really excited to hear your answer, because you've traveled all over the world. So what is your favorite food?
Steak frites.
Great choice. Favorite drink?
I didn't drink so much anymore, but I used to love whiskey sours.
Classic. Favorite film?
So I thought about this, but so I love Inception, but also Meet Joe Black, and weirdly 7 Years in Tibet, which is slightly odd with Brad Pitt's strange German accent. But I think they're all beautifully made for different reasons.
Yeah, they are. I'm very excited to ask you this question because you've been everywhere. Favorite hotel?
Well, I have to say the Connaught. But
yes.
Also, there's two others. I love the Hotel Coste in Paris. I think what Jack Garcia did there was beautiful. And I love that atrium in the middle. And the swimming pool there is amazing. And the details. And you don't mind being in these small rooms because it's so beautifully layered. And
yeah, it's such a chic hotel.
Yeah, it is. And then in New York, the Carlisle, because of the stories around it, that Devilman's Bar and all that. And then in Los Angeles, Chateau Marmont, although it needs some love.
Yeah.
But,
they need you.
Yeah, it's the one I've always wanted to do, to be honest. And yeah, it's, ironically, I was working with Andre Balazs at the time. It almost happened, but didn't yet. So.
Well, we're putting it out into the universe. It's going to come back and boomerang you in a couple months. Favorite city?
Buenos Aires.
I've never been there. My husband and I really want to go. Yeah.
You have to go. It's a cross between Barcelona and Paris.
Yes, I've heard it's just such a great place to visit, and so much history, and the food.
Oh, it's incredible. The food's amazing, steak free, and there's red wine, and then there's this amazing architecture. So Argentina was the fifth economy in the world in 1905, and they thought, we'll get the École des Beaux-Arts to design our buildings. It's going to be like Paris here. And the French architects didn't come to Buenos Aires. They sent the design. And then the local architect changed details. So because what's the money from in Argentina? Beef. So the capitals of the columns are like cow's heads and things like that. It's like,
oh my God, that's so cool.
They've adapted it to the local language, and it's, you're right across on the River Plate, and it's beautiful. It's just the most incredible atmosphere, and I would highly recommend it. And I'd also recommend going to Patagonia and go down to Bariloche. And if you need tips about where to go, I'll tell you. But
yes, I may hit you up for that, honestly.
Argentina, definitely, in Buenos Aires for sure. So.
Yeah, that's like a dream trip on my bucket list when my kids are out of school. Favorite bedding? We always love to ask designers this.
Oh, this is a difficult one. So, Swan's Island blankets.
Ooh.
They're cool. I think they make beautiful things. Their colors are like sort of grays and these wonderful indigo colors and things on their blankets and things. And then once Milano, so a friend's wife helped set that up, and they have some beautiful linens and things. So on high days and holidays, I roll out the once Milano.
Yes, we cherish the one set, exactly. Tea or coffee, and how do you take it?
So I used to be a big coffee drinker, but I've changed. So in the morning, first thing I do is have green tea, and one of my very close friends introduced me to matcha tea, and I love that as well. So that's kind of nice.
Favorite playlist or music to listen to?
So I oscillate between popular music and I love movie music. And I have a friend who has a music agency in LA, and he has these concerts with these film writers. And so, so Hans Zimmer, Alan Silvestri, who wrote the music for Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Alexander Desplat as well. He's got incredible talent. And then on the popular side, from my time in France, Johnny Hallyday and Noir C'est Noir. I love that. Steve Winwood, Sam Rumba, James Blunt, Savage Garden. There's a song in that which is "I'd Fly You to the Moon and Back."
Yeah,
which is my level of romance. I mean, that's my way of thinking about it. So I would fly you to the moon and back if I love you. So
I love that.
And Cesaria Vora, I went through a period of loving her voice. She's got this incredible kind of resonant voice, this deep sort of wonderful voice. And
favorite weekend activity?
Jetpack training with Gravity Industries.
That is so cool.
Yeah, they do courses in flying jetpacks. So.
Oh my God. Is it scary?
No, I think the idea of having two jets strapped to your hand is slightly scary in case you go wrong. There's so much maneuver from that.
So cool though.
No, but it's the closest thing to being flying on your own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love anything to do with the air.
And our last question, which I always love to ask everyone, favorite design book?
So this changes all the time, but there is a beautiful book that's just come out recently, which is to do with texture, layering, pattern, and food.
Oh, interesting.
And it's by a lady called Antoinette Poisson. So she's also
we love her fabrics.
So A Year in the French Style, and it's just beautifully detailed, the book. I mean, it goes through each season, and then there's different photographs of different geographical locations, and then the style of the detailing of the house. So, anything for me, I was asked to help a friend with the domain, this is a sort of friend's project.
Yeah.
And it's in this area of France near Narbonne, which has got salt marshes outside and these pine trees, and it's quite a harsh environment because it gets very hot in the summer. But the book reminded me of that place, and again another story, but it's a beautifully detailed book. It would be like the perfect Christmas gift for someone who loves design, I think. So
wow, I'm gonna get it for myself.
Oh, you have to. It's so beautiful. And I'm working on a book about Afghan interiors, weirdly, with my friend
Wow.
Kennedy, and she and I were going through books, and we liked the Cabana books, those the details. And then I said, I've just found this amazing book, which you just have to get, and it's just beautifully detailed. So, and I think it's a great gift, and it's like design pornography. You want to look through it.
Oh my God, I'm gonna order it right after this. I'm so excited. This has been such a delight. Thank you so much for joining me. I learned so much, and I can't wait to dive into these things that you've told me about, like this book. I'm so excited. A final few words. What are you working on right now? Are there any new projects you can talk about?
Yeah, I'm doing, so we're at the Hotel in Italy, which is opening next June, Borgo Pignano, Florence, and that is the sister hotel to an existing hotel in Volterra near San Gimignano called Borgo Pignano.
Wow.
I just finished 88 rooms and suites at the Connaught, which was the most strange experience because we did 5 at a time and nobody noticed that we were there. We were so discreet. So when it came to an end, and it came to an end about a month ago, and I hung the last painting. We hung the last painting on the wall, and I was like, "Oh, we're finished."
Oh my God. It's probably so sad at the end because it's such a part of your life for so long.
And people again assume that everything is this seamless sort of situation where everything is the magical world of the Connaught or the magical world of Claridge, is that everything just remains preserved like that the whole way. But there's a team of people behind it. So, and there's another boat project coming up. I love that kind of covers all my bases really, because it's a nautical project and designing space and designing playing with it's a big toy, a wonderful old yacht. It's a wonderful thing to have the opportunity to work on. So
yeah, that's so cool.
And there's some voluntary stuff as well. So I still do some bits and pieces where I'm trying to get a historic building in central London restored as an art centre and a museum, and I'm involved with another historical maritime project which I can't name, but it's kind of cool.
I love that you have your hand in different categories because they all connect in some way, shape, or form. And so you're, as you're learning about one, you layer it into another, and it must be so fascinating.
Well, I mean, I kind of woke up to the Irish connection when, the thread I hadn't even thought about the Connaught being the Connaught because it's an Irish title and an Irish province. And then when the Shelbourne came along, I'm designing a window with the 4 provinces of Ireland, which are Ulster, Leinster.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hang on. I've been working in the Connaught for 7 years, and then I'm doing the Shelbourne. And this is Irish province, and I'm kind of big, so the something is guiding. It all comes
together.
Yeah, so something's been the guiding thread through my life.
The last question we always ask everyone is, what advice do you have for someone looking to define their own interior style?
Don't be scared to express your personality, because you have to have that confidence. And some people are kind of embarrassed about their past, or they think they have to listen to their friends, or and then they get blown around with the wind. It's like being you're tumbleweed if you do that. You've got to have conviction and confidence that what you're doing is something that you want and love, and you're different to everyone else. Your life experience is different to everyone else. There's no way you could replicate. I teach sometimes at design school, and this student came up to me and she said, "Tell me every step of your journey." And I'm like, I can't tell you every step of my journey. And she's like, I need to create the situation where I can do this, this, and this. And I'm like, all I can tell you is focus on what you want to do and love it, and follow follow that star.
Yeah.
Don't try and mimic anyone. Don't listen to any other people who are trying.
It's so true, though. It's such good life advice. Even, forget career advice, but life advice, that like when you are true to yourself, good things come from that, and you live the most authentic life being you. And
I had to learn that the hard way. I definitely learned that the hard way.
I think we all do. I think it's part of growing up. It's like learning how to get comfortable with being you.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I think I've been very fortunate in the characters and the people. That song in Hamilton which says, being in the room where it happens.
Yeah.
I've been in the room where it happens as an observer and as a participant, and you also, and I come away and I pinch myself and say, did I really just talk to so-and-so about that?
Yeah.
And, and did that really happen? And it did. It's also not important. My dad's bit of advice to me was, what happens if your life exceeds your expectations? And he said, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
So, don't, people think you're a fantasist, or you're trying to show off or whatever. So it's also about learning to be integral and discreet about things
That's really good advice too. You really do need to write a book, I'm telling you.
A therapy book. No,
I'm putting that into the world for you, and it will come find you, that you are going to write a book because you have to. Guy, thank you so much for coming on. This was truly such a delight. I had so much fun talking with you.
Thank you, Ariel. I appreciate it.
Thanks again to my guest today for joining me, and to Shopmy for sponsoring this season of Talk Shop. Head to the show notes to create your free shopper account and explore the curated storefronts from this season's designers. We'll be back next week with more thoughtful discussions and amazing guests. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. And of course, follow me at Ariel Okin. See you next week.